Today is the 25th of November. Friday was the 22nd of November, and as we always know, on Fridays the Kenya Gazette is published. And on this one, the Gazette notice number 15372, we had one special announcement. The Constitution of Kenya 2010, pursuant to Article 129, as read together with Article 138 and 138 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, it is notified for the information of the general public that Andrew Okiya Omtatah Okoh, the Senator of the Republic of Kenya, elected by the great people of Busia County, has established a presidential exploratory committee. The committee's primary objective is to gather, analyze, evaluate, and act on information on the viability of the Senator's presidential bid for the August 2027 general election. Hey. I've never heard of anything. I have been there during very many presidential campaigns, never seen anything like this. But the Senator is here. Senator, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
You've
taken us very far, Bwana. Is this thing in the Constitution of Kenya really that you have put? In fact, we'll open it at Article 129, right together with Article 138. We'll talk about that, but welcome. Siti, did you know that you can form a presidential, not working party on education, but a presidential exploratory committee?
Yeah, no, task forces.
Task forces.
Yeah, this one is new.
Hey.
But that's a good thing. By the end of this conversation, I'll be thoroughly informed.
Welcome to the modern era.
This is it, eh?
Yeah.
This is a modern Kenya.
Yeah, the new republic has arrived.
Well.
Let's go to the kingdom, not the republic, of Eswatini.
Yes. And the proverb. The antelope that is constantly moving will fall into a pit.
The antelope that is constantly moving will fall into a pit. Senator, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
Well, there's consequences to actions. Yeah, for every action there's a consequence. So basically they're saying that in less colorful words, somebody told us one time that choices have consequences. So the land is never even. So if you are constantly moving, first of all, you have got no purpose. You are directionless. Yeah. You have no goal. And so basically, if you choose to have no goal in life, you end up in failure.
So this is constantly moving. To you here, you interpret it as just loitering, roaming about.
It's not even grazing.
Not even grazing.
The Swahili phrase manga.
Kumanga, kutanga. It's like what the devil was doing by the time he came back, and God asked him, where have you been? You're sweating, you're panting. Did you see my good man called who? Job. Like, that guy, leave him alone. You favor him all the time. What would you like to tempt him? Then he faced it. I am opening Chapter 9 of the Constitution of Kenya, Principles and Structures of the National Executive. Article 129 has many things. It's a principles of executive authority. Executive authority derives from the people of Kenya and shall be exercised in accordance with this Constitution. Executive authority shall be exercised in a manner compatible with the principle of service to the people of Kenya and for their well-being and benefit. Now let's read that one together with Article 138. I'm going to scroll down. 138. Procedure of a presidential election. If only one candidate for president is nominated, that candidate shall be declared elected. If two or more are nominated, an election shall be held in each constituency. In a presidential election, all persons registered as voters for the purposes of parliamentary elections are entitled to vote. The poll shall be taken by secret ballot, and after counting the votes in the polling stations, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall tally and verify the count and declare the result. So basically, this is giving us the procedure for electing a president. So we are looking at the principles of executive authority and the way to
acquire
it.
Yes.
And you're saying that using those two, you have formed a presidential exploratory committee.
Yes.
Now that one is nowhere in the Constitution. What's that? What's that one?
That one is a process. There have been very many calls for me to stand for president. And I said I'm a realist. Let me give it some people who are detached from me to give me an objective opinion on the viability of the calls that are coming. So it has been a process, and I also believe that the country needs to be put back on the rails. Yeah. Today, when you sing the national anthem of Kenya, you are singing about a different country. If you listen to the words, you are not describing this country. You are talking about a country that doesn't exist. And so you want to get back and sing that national anthem so that it can resonate with the reality on the ground.
Okay. So, Senator, I have to ask you, is it an inherent desire that you have to be president of Kenya? Or is it because the different ideas that have floated to you from different quarters, and I'm sure that they have been numerous, to say do this because of how we have seen you have operated over the last few years, and they said, okay, well, these guys might have a point, let me try. Which is it?
Well, my inherent desire, and the biggest desire I have, is to be a good citizen. Now, that good citizen requires good service. And my drive is to see that this country provides service that the citizens of this country deserve. And so I've always taken on a challenge whenever I've been, and even some of my biggest achievements were on very small challenges, like when we had the Butere girls being banned from doing a play. I didn't just sit in Nairobi. I took it up, and I made sure those guys went to court, got very good orders from Justice Majanja, the late. May the Lord rest his soul in peace. And the kids were able to go to Mombasa and perform. And the reason was I believe in freedom of expression. And so, when it comes to what needs to be done, right now I'm seeing that the challenge this country is facing, just like the small thing that Butere was having, was bad governance. So right now, there's total state capture in this country, and it calls on each one of us to do what we can to achieve that. I've tried in the courts, and what moved me the other day to realize that this thing maybe cannot be won within the courts was the judgment the Supreme Court gave the other day, where the Constitution says very clearly that the budget should have estimates of revenue and estimates of expenditure. High Court agreed, Court of Appeal agrees, Supreme Court says no. Supreme Court decides to write a judgment that basically says your Constitution is just a piece of paper. And when I began interrogating it, I looked at the Supreme Court Act, and I found that through some mischief, Parliament had given it the power that we can consider political whatever, consider whatever. Yet Article 2, Clause 4 of the Constitution is very clear that anything against this Constitution is null and void. So I realized that the fight is to implement the Constitution. And there's no better place to do that than from the presidency. It's the Constitution or nothing. Implement the Constitution, and we have three broad goals that I'm trying to push for. They are very, very simple. But they are simple in the nature that they are transformative. So basically, we have got what we call economic and social reforms. Notice we are not doing anything about law reforms. Economic and social reforms. And that is one, is to enforce constitutionalism including the rule of law. That must happen. The law must apply to everybody and to every transaction. Number 2, we must institute fiscal discipline to fix the shaky public finances and structures, including the elimination of corruption and wastage. And wastage, you can even look at the structure of government. Why do you have 24 ministries? I've had a committee, a group of experts who have worked over time and produced a structure of government that has only 14 ministries. And this country will run very well. Why wasting all that money having another 8 ministries over and above that? Now, but what we also be looking at, and when we clean up, we have also looked at, if you look at Article 225, Clause 1 of the Constitution, it requires the Treasury to be established as an independent institution. One of the major policy things we have to do is to get the Treasury established like the central bank, run by experts, and the politicians have no access to public money at the whim. The president should not walk anywhere and then to entertain people say, PS, where are you? Milioni 200 iingie kwa hii mradi. Is it in the budget? We must restore the budget as the primary tool of government policy. If it's important, it will be in the budget. If it's not important, it will be outside the budget.
So at the time, for example, we're already, so the budgeting system began in September, right? So what you're saying essentially is that all these things that we see last weekend, 5 million to a church, weekend before that, 2 million for a school.
By the time Rudi ufungue shule, hii barabara itakuwa imemalizika.
Those things have to go.
All of those things, you're saying, if it is not in this budget, like we started in September, going on and finishing at the time we come to June, then forget it.
Forget it. Even this borrowing, you hear the IMF is giving people money. This country does not belong to a president. The people have passed a budget, and in that budget, there's no provision for a loan from IMF. For heaven's sake, what is this loan doing? Where is this money going? Domestic borrowing is not in the budget. Why are we borrowing? So the budget must be restored as the primary tool of governance in this country. And if you want to see equity in the country, let us look at the budget. What is being allocated to this region? What is being allocated to what? You will see equity. You don't have to go to the ground. Let us see where the money is going. Then you can now follow the money. Anything else is out. So and to do that, to get that discipline, we must go to the Constitution and separate the Treasury from the Ministry of Finance. Let the Ministry of Finance do the policy things and whatever, but the boss of the Treasury, the National Treasurer, should be like the governor of the central bank. Autonomous, he receives the money from the Kenya Revenue Authority or from the loans that have been borrowed. It goes in that account. Parliament appropriates that money how it is supposed to be used. The controller of budget supervises the use. Then you have accountability. The president waits for your paycheck at the end of the month. When you are traveling,
you apply for...
You go whatever you want to do, but you don't go there and begin promising goodies. There are no goodies. The goodies must be in the budget. So that we restore the place of parliament to begin with.
That is fiscal discipline.
Fiscal discipline. So, and then corruption, people have to be punished. And what has been stolen has to be recovered. If you look at some of the money that has been stolen and is taken out of this country, if it was in a wealth fund, it was also another thing we must institute. If you look at Article 201, Clause D, Clause C, not D, Clause C, we need to save for the future. People are mining gold today. People are mining whatever, and are taking things out. What will their future generations depend on in this country? So we must have a tax system. In Norway, minerals are taxed at 78% to go to the sovereign wealth. Here, people are just playing with minerals. They call that and whatever. We must come back and do a resource map of this country and make it public for everyone to know what are the resources we have, and then we must come up with an agenda of transforming those resources into wealth. The ultimate purpose of a leader is to convert resources into wealth. Right now, our if you look at our per capita GDP, is 1.9, $1,900. It's fallen down to 200, it was 2,000 a few years ago. It's now 1,900. Kenya should be able to be at $30,000 per capita. The question should be to a leader, how do we get there? Not this is a Samburu, this is a Somali, this is a Kikuyu, this is a Luya, this is a Luo. No. The question is, how do you move Kenyans from about $2,000 per year per capita to $30,000 US? How do you work there?
3 million earning 3 million per year.
Per year.
Per person.
Yeah.
Yes.
In this country of ours.
Yes, the resources are there. Because if you look at the ministers, even that day Bandy said that 2 billion is being stolen. It's become like a joke. And there are no consequences to that. Then if you are losing 2 billion and you want to auction Jomo Kenyatta for 34 billion, what are you for about 100 and what? What are you who are you
doing?
Why don't you get those 2 billion over 1 month and pay off the debt?
I think there's I think that some of these things, when they are not set out into the open, is then we are not able to embrace the possibility of their reality.
Yeah.
So I would like to look at some of those things that you talk about.
Now,
That should be done as a leader. But what I want to ask you, if I may, before you go to the number 3, why was it necessary then for you to institute an exploratory committee to then look at your viability for candidacy? Why? Other people will just stand up and say, look, man, I want to be president. Let's go.
Because one thing we are doing is that I'm not a messiah. I don't want to present myself like a messiah for anything. I'm not selling Omtatah. I want to sell an agenda. And among those things that people are going to do, or that committee is going to do, is to help develop a vehicle and a policy framework that from day one, if it's implemented, we get this country back on the rails. And behind that committee is a very big secretariat of volunteers in various fields who are working out to try and develop a policy framework so that when you sing that national anthem of the Republic of Kenya, you can see Kenya on the ground. Not singing like you are praying to a dead God.
Okay, point number 3 before we take the break. So the first one was economic and social reforms.
No, the first was constitutionalism and the rule of law. And they feed into each other.
Okay.
Once you enforce the rule of law, like I've just shown you, are separating the treasury and doing all these institutions, then your physical discipline begins becoming possible. Once you get that physical discipline properly in place, you release money. And then this money is now going to deal with the elimination of poverty.
Okay.
And we want to look at 4 key areas.
So let's go again. So first, enforce constitutionalism and the rule of law.
Yes.
B, fiscal discipline. C?
Yes. Physical discipline, we want to make sure that public money is controlled and it's used for the benefit of the common good.
Okay.
And to eliminate corruption and wastage.
And eliminating that, that's part of the physical discipline. Now, number 3, now you have the money. You have secured this money.
Yes.
You now want to address the questions of poverty. Okay? And the immediate things within that area, you want to address the question of food, the food industry, liberated from cartels completely. Restore institutions that used to allow farmers to control the industry. Restore things like extension workers. Restore things like they used to call veterinary officers, stuff like that. Restore the agricultural farms that were used for research and for development or whatever. Restore the quarantine areas. So that you can also begin to export meat and things like those. So you're going to deal with that in agriculture. But ultimately, the ultimate goal is that agriculture should not be the mainstay of the economy. Agriculture should ultimately become for producing food for Kenyans. The mainstay of the economy has to go into the service industry. We must build factories, we must industrialize. Then you go to the question of health. People are chapping around saying universal health care. You cannot run universal health care on private hospitals. The public hospitals have collapsed. There must be a restoration of universal health care. And in the health sector, you must address the question of the medical human resource. Look at all the disharmony we are having in the medical sector. The doctors are on the streets, what have you. You know, during the review process, when they were making this new constitution, there had been a proposal, and it was in the harmonized draft that went to Naivasha, to form a national health commission, like a teacher service commission, to deal with the human resource for health at the national level. When it went to Naivasha, the parliamentary committee removed that, but made an undertaking on two things: that by legislation they would establish that commission to be able to address the human resource issue in health. And it's very important so that doctors can have the freedom to move around. They can be like the teachers are paid centrally. You can have them transferred various to gain different experience. You can put scarce resources at critical centers so that the referrals are there. Not trying to have very, very expensive personnel at every point in every county. So that human commission must be brought back. We must first of all contain the turmoil within the human resource in the health sector. Number two, we need to do also simple things like there's a lot of theft of government stores. Go back and brand them. When I was growing up, I could swallow a Panadol with the word GOK on it. Today, you can't see those things. We need to go back and brand government stores to eliminate the theft that is happening there. We need now to invest in the sector, make public hospitals as good as any. That's when you can begin talking of universal health care. Universal health care on private hospitals is just an extortion scheme. The private hospitals will just chew up that money, and the insurance will remain with nothing. I've seen like the NHIF having very heavy bills, although there was some corruption in it also, but most of the corruption was driven by these private hospitals. So if the government can set up its own institutions, and basically what I'm saying, our policy here is that the government must go back to be a provider of goods and services. We cannot allow the private sector to be subsidizing the government. Let the private sector compete with the best that the government is offering. Not that the private sector thrives because the government has failed. So if you can ensure universal health care, the hospitals that the government has, give the basic and the basic that you require, you'll find that the cost of running health care will go down, the insurance schemes will run well. But to try and do what they are trying to do, like even the share, whatever, but the hospitals that are working are private hospitals. We are heading nowhere. So we go to the foundation, we fix the health. The other thing is education. This money that is liberated should be channeled to the public education sector. Restore the public schools. And offer taxpayer-funded education in public schools from primary at least to secondary school, if possible the first degree. But primary to secondary school must be taxpayer-funded because education is so key to this country, we can't ignore it. Our best brains may not be born may not necessarily be born in the richest families. They could be languishing somewhere in Marsabit. They could be languishing somewhere in Busia, somewhere, wherever. Those brains should be able to be there, to be given an opportunity to get to the school system and move.
Senator Okiya Omtatah is our guest this morning, and we're talking about his thinking behind the formation of a presidential exploratory committee, a 10-member team. That why did you have to establish it? That's a question that Ndu asked you. Why? And why even put it in a gazette notice? What's the requirement? There's no requirement for you to do any of those things that you're doing. What's the thinking behind it? Senator, so why form a committee? Why not just do this thing? Okay, you can form a committee, but why put it in a gazette notice?
I'm going for a public office, which is owned by Kenyans. And I would like when these people go out to do like public polling and stuff like that and doing investigation, trying to reach out to possible resource mobilizers and what have you, they have a basis that have clearly been announced in law, that have been gazetted, and they are doing a function that is above board. They are not clandestine. That's why I chose to put in the Kenya Gazette, so that it's in the official record of the Republic, that these people have been given an assignment by myself, and an assignment has got certain TORs, which are clearly published there.
Yeah.
So when they walk into a place, they will be able to show the Gazette notice as the basis upon which they are working. And that's something that is public and in the open.
Are they earning a salary?
No, they are volunteering. They are mainly volunteers. Yeah.
How are you financing them? How are you facilitating them? If you expect them to do a poll across the country, you expect them to hold sittings with people and ask them, what do you think the main pain points of Kenyans are? What would you like to see from a future president? Do you think Omtatah would be there? Who's fueling their vehicle? Who's paying for their hotel?
No, that one I can manage. That one I've got the capacity to do.
Oh, so you're the one who's financing this thing?
I've got the capacity to do from my small businesses here and there. I'm able to put up 2-3 shillings. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the time frame of this exploratory
They've been given
committee?
18 months, but they can report back earlier. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the 18 months I put out, it could be the latest point if one was run, it would just be the tail end of the comet. Yeah, you need to catch it. Yeah.
Okay. So they're going to give consolidated views.
Yes.
And this would be after they've gone around the country and they're talking to people and asking them questions based on some of these things that you've said.
And the main thing is, if you look at that, is to develop a policy framework. We don't want to get there, and then, there's a time no government, after it went into power, it called a meeting at the KICC to say the Kenya we want.
Yes.
Then there was the Nairobi we want. This like they took power and they did not they wanted to do it.
So they're developing a manifesto. For
Yeah. Well, it's more than a manifesto. It's called an ideological identity and a policy framework, legal and policy framework. They're going to bring up. Largely, we want to go for a form of developmental state. And even though we are going to have very radical interventions in state corporations to have them run professionally. We have litigated in the courts until the Court of Appeal. You have orders saying that state corporations should be constituted competitively. You are going to run the Kenya Airways. You want to go and sit on that board. What are the goals? What can you do for Kenya Airways as a board? You have dumped people there who go there to see how they can steal, how they can survive, and all boards are just like that. So even if you have sometimes a very good CEO, he gets bogged down by the kind of board he's given. So you want a professional board, you want professionalized parastatals, we want to really get away from cronyism. Let us give the vehicles to the best drivers there. And bake a bigger cake for this country. So those are among the interventions we want to take, very, very deliberate.
Yeah.
You have got the other thing I was going to mention is transport. Transport is a major hindrance to the development of this country. We waste a lot of hours in transport because the state has left it to the private sector. Totally. The state needs to intervene in some very, very specific ways and look at public transport as a strategic area that needs to be focused on. Just look at other countries that are developed. Public transport runs very well. So that's another area I want to look at. And among the issues, people are the groups we have, other than the committee, we've got very many volunteers in other committees working on various policy frameworks that they think can be taken up. So we want to make transport affordable. Even air transport is a is a necessary thing in this country today. You need to be able to fly from Nairobi to Mandera, transact and come back the same day. So we want to try and see if why not have proper airstrips across the at least in every county, basic airstrips, a runway that can handle an average plane. And some tower, some tower and what have you. Open up the airwaves, remove taxation and necessary taxation on the issue, get volumes going, let Kenyans move easily.
Senator Omtatah, you've said you do not want to be the Messiah. But all these things, must they wait for you to become president for them to get done?
I wish Ruto could pick him up today and I will support him.
You're a senator. You're a member of the national...
Yes, I'm a senator.
Of the legislature in Kenya. These are things that can be done. Today, if you wanted, for example, to go and lobby, you want to lobby more than 10 million Kenyans to vote for you as president. Can you go and lobby just 67 members of the Senate to support you in a move, for example, to say that our education shall be properly public funded as per the requirements of the Constitution and as per the policy of government, that 100% of our education, basic education, shall be taxpayer funded? Do you need to be president for that to become reality?
Yes, you need somewhere where the country has reached. The Senate, the National Assembly are largely rubber stamps of the executive. The single voices who stand out like Maina or the other are nothing. You saw the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. Just choreographed. Just choreographed. So the Senate is, I think, an area whereby...
So what would you do as president to make that reality? Let's just deal with, for example, ensuring that a child in Kenya goes from ECD all the way to, what's the now last class in CBC? It's grade what?
No.
12.
12, yes.
Yeah.
Up until year 12.
To grade 12 without having to pay. Taxpayers are paying for that.
First of all, there's a lot of money right now being given to people to pay from their pockets in the terms of bursaries and what have you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money being wasted. That money has to be streamlined into the means of education. And these savings from, once you crack down and read the Riot Act. In fact, they say a river does not flow higher than its source. So if the source is polluted, you cannot wait for clean water downstream. You go and clean up the source. That's what I'm happy about. That's what I want to go and do.
So you say as president, then you'll issue a decree and say no more CDF?
Not necessarily decree. Those have been declared by the courts, but have been captured. What I'll say is that we are implementing the Constitution. You are a legislator. What are you doing with the executive functions? Go and oversight the executive on the ground. If money has to be tied to a constituency, let it be tied, but it goes through the executive channel. You as the MP for the area, you can go and oversight that money it is used. In fact, it would be more efficient use of money than when the money is controlled by the MP.
I have to ask, a lot of things that we've seen and we see currently is that political alignments then breed appointments in government. And those then who have been tasked with responsibility for development, whether it is in a ministry or whether it is in, any other of its related offices. And a lot of that come as a result of loyalty, allegiance, call it whatever you want to call it. How do you run away from such a thing? Because I think it's absolutely necessary for you to ensure development and proper leadership, that you cannot do that kind of business with your friends. How would you run away from that?
I don't have to run away. I just implement the law. The law is so clear that those things are not there. That's why in this country you'll find that, other than a few names that you can count maybe on one hand, the so-called billionaires in this country have either been civil servants or politicians. Which means state legacy has been used in an improper way to enrich individuals. So, with a republic, this word republic, I don't know whether people understand it. It's the most powerful thing we ever say in this country. A republic is a government of law. And when the Americans had given themselves their constitution, there was an old man called Benjamin Franklin who had really worked for it. He was an old man in his 80s with a very severe gout. He was asked by some of the people, what have you given us? Is it a republic or a monarchy? And he said one thing, a republic if you can keep it. So a republic calls for eternal vigilance. We must keep the Republic of Kenya. When you talk about Republic of Kenya, you must go for a government of law. The real problem we have in this country is rule of law. The experts can do nothing. People are running this country like they're experts on everything. Why don't we create a situation whereby we allow the cream to rise to the top based on merit, not on loyalty, not on friendship? And that one can go out and it will work. Because this issue of cronyism and whatever has not worked. Even tribalism has not worked for this country. So let us try the rule of law. Let us try to allow experts in various dockets in the civil service or wherever to come to the top and function. I'm in my office, I've got so many petitions from civil servants saying, why can't this be done? Like just a few days ago, I got one from the people on tuna, Minister of Fisheries. They came to me and said, look at the resource we have. But because of vested interests, we are only issuing licenses to foreigners to come and fish in our waters. And they showed me data to show that the Indian Ocean is barren in terms of tuna, except on the African coast, with the epicenter being Kenya. $1 trillion.
We're the ones who have tuna.
Yes, mainly
on this African coast.
On the African coast, the Indian Ocean is barren. But now, who are catching it? All are foreigners. They're giving licenses, and attempts by these people in the ministry to come up with policies to help have been frustrated. So they came and saying, what can you do to help us break out of this? So there we have got people who want this country to grow. They are being denied. You have people who come and say, we would like to invest in something. But we have got crooks in government who say, give us 30% upfront, so people cannot come into this country. So we need to get rid of those bottlenecks. We need to get rid of these cartels. We need to get rid of a situation whereby that fake fertilizer can be given to farmers by government agencies who are on public payroll and no head rolls. You see, we need to get those kind of things should not happen.
Okay.
And if I became president, there'll be things I'll say, not under my watch. There'll be a list of items of not under my watch.
I hate to sound like a wet blanket here, but you have started between now and 2027. So many people are going to be coming here and saying exactly the same things, pointing out where the problems are, what the solutions should be like, and saying these things can be done easily if I become president. We have seen it many times before. What makes you different? What would make us believe that when Okiya says this, it's going to be different from what Ruto told us, what Uhuru told us, what Raila has told us before, what all these other candidates have told us before?
When you look at the kind of manifesto we are developing, we are not having the kind of things we have been seeing, which are basically mirror images of each other. The manifestos that have been coming out, when you look at them, I usually use the analogy of a prison, whereby you have got this big prison, then you have got prisoners and you have got wardens. But the arrangement is that the prisoners occasionally have a chance to choose the chief warden. So there's a fight occasionally every 5 years of who becomes the chief warden. So it is very vicious among the wardens. But when you look at them, their promissory notes or their manifestos are that, put me as the chief warden, I will add you time in the sun. I'll fumigate twice a week. I'll improve your food rations. Nobody says I'll break down the prison. Nobody says I will emancipate you. So this culture of handouts and what have you has to go.
You've gotten to the heart of the matter, Senator, because if we look at the culture of corruption, as we call it, which in essence is a manifestation of the impunity, it seems to have gotten to our very souls because it defines us, more or less. We are a corrupt people. We all acknowledge we have more than ample human resource. If it is structures of government and plans as to how to execute things, we have archived them, we have them. How do you get people to accept the rule of law? Because the rule of law will run contrary to the very things that I have just said. And it will threaten the livelihood and the lives of very many people. And these are people who will definitely push back.
What I do is, one thing, I'm a very big believer in the rule of law. Because in the Garden of Eden, man was told he will be governed by law. When he disobeyed the law, we lost paradise. In Exodus, Moses was given the 10 Commandments. It was the law. It was going to govern you. So the law is central. And the first thing I'll do in the rule of law is to apply it to myself. It will not be ruled by law. It will be rule of law. The first thing is to subject myself totally to that law and do everything within the ambit of that law. The law we have is very powerful, and no individual, unless he raises a militia to establish a different state, can stand up to the law of this country. And so for me, it's not a difficult thing because we already have the text. We already have the Constitution. Take an example. Elections in this country.
Yes.
For presidential, you always get the mess. Go to Article 138, Clause 2. It tells you an election shall, if there are more than 2 candidates, I only just read, an election shall be held in each constituency. Why don't we do that? The Americans do have the same structure. In every state, they elect and say who has won in the state. Then even you in the media are able to call. Why are you not able to call an election in Kenya? Why are we disobeying that fact that the election must end at the constituency? Why do we have bombers? Why do we have bombers? And then we create all this chaos. And why is bombers in the law? It's not even in the Election Act that makes the chairman of the IBC the presidential returning officer. It's in the regulations. And they bring all that chaos. Why can't an election terminate at the constituency as the constitution has it? Then, whatever verification, whatever is done at the constituency.
But how can it be done at the constituency? Yet there are 290.
Yes. Get 290 certificates.
And then?
You can call the election.
Who?
Anybody can call the election.
Apana, boy.
The IBC will only validate.
Even that America you're quoting, it's a Senate that calls the election.
No, but they are going to do it in January. Don't we know who has been elected?
Yeah, we can provisionally say.
Don't we know who has been elected?
We can provisionally say.
Yes.
Has it been called?
No, the media called.
Bas.
And Trump is the presidential elect.
Based on?
But the declaration now will happen in January. For us, it's within 7 days, 10 days. We should be doing that declaration. Not again, they're not going to go on January to begin counting the ballots in each polling station and saying they're verifying and doing whatever. They're not going to do that. They are going to go with those results. The electors have come, and we already know who the presidential elect is. That's what should happen even in this country. Let the election be transparent. Let the election end at a point, which is the constituency. Let you media people put 290 reporters out there to return you results. You do the mathematics and say, this thing, there's no winner. We are seeing a runoff.
Senator, let me belabor this point. Everything you're saying requires a support system.
Yes.
And the support system will be Kenyans, individuals who have a similar belief.
Yeah.
How on earth do you get such people? Where do you get them? I mean, they're here, but what process will you use to get them so you know this?
I know that's just what you are doing right now. You are making me reach so many Kenyans with these ideas. So you're going to go out and get these ideas. And I think the next election, one of the clarion calls will be no bombers. If bombers is there, there'll be trouble. We don't want bombers in the elections.
So what do we want?
We want an election as the Constitution prescribes, to terminate at the constituency. Take the results for all the needs be pinned at the constituency. Those who have run for the county seats, if it's like Busia, there are 7 constituencies. You pick the results for the 7 constituencies. You know who is the women rep. You know who is the senator. You know who is the governor. And you know who is the president. For the people of Busia, whom have you elected as president? Then the same goes Madare North, Dagoretti, like that. Then at the end of the day, the 290 constituencies report.
To whom?
No, to the people the constituents
who
have elected.
But nationally, who tallies all these things in all these constituencies, in all these counties?
You just get an aggregate.
Who is you?
Who?
Now, the IBC chair then declares. He doesn't do a finding. He just aggregates and declares. Well, if you look at the Constitution...
He has to find.
No, if you look at the Constitution, look at Article 86.
There are other things that happen nationally,
like
Senator. What? For example, the 50% plus 1 is a finding.
No.
It's after tallying.
It's not a finding.
It's
just like an aggregation.
Okay.
He just adds, which even you in the media, when you have got the results from
in the media, don't matter.
No. You have got the 290 constituencies.
I am not in the constitution.
Or even me as a candidate.
You are not in the constitution.
I've got the 290. No. Even Article 10, look at Article 138, 10, clause 10. It says the chairman shall declare the results. Now, look at Article 86, 2 and 3. 2 gives you that in every polling station, there will be a presiding officer. Then at the constituency, there's a returning officer.
So the chairman shall declare.
And what do? They tally and announce the results.
They announce the result.
But the chairman, the word is?
Declares the winner.
Declare the winner.
Yes.
He doesn't announce the results. But what have we done? We have given him the powers of a returning officer. The chairman is not a returning officer of anything. The chairman simply...
Do we need you to be president to change that?
No. Towards the presidency. That's part of the fight. That the next election has to be happening that way. We must terminate the election at the constituency. Mambo ya Bomas, Mambo ya Kamengo, all those funny things. We don't want them. We terminated the constituency where everybody's watching. And you know that this constituency voted for so as the presidential candidate with so many votes. Those tallies will be done in the open. We don't want a situation like what we have now. That the certificate President William Ruto was given, when you put on the spreadsheet, the results are different. The mathematics does not add up. When the math doesn't add up at that level, what are you dealing with?
Fire the math teacher.
You see? So, we don't want to end up with a situation like that.
So, Senator, finally.
Yes.
Finally, just to answer City's question. For you to be able to achieve all these things, you need to have people who are like-minded and as idealist as you are to help you realize this. How will you do that? How will
they'll take ballots and go and vote.
How will you identify the people to work with?
No, I'll give them an agenda. The people to work with are just many and are there. Kenyans.
So they'll sign performance contracts just like the current ministers.
Not the kind of performance contracts. What we are talking about is change, is a systemic change. When you take the treasury away from the Ministry of Finance and set up the national treasurer, and he has got the keys to the purse, not the politicians. It's a game changer, my friend. There are things we need to do, institutions that have to be put up to achieve those kind of things. And if we do that, I'm telling you, public money will be sorted. If we make the budget, the primary tool of governance, even the fight to be president will not be as bad as it is. Right now, when people become president, they think you have captured the state, so you can use it in a way that favors or disfavors some people. But if we remove that by just shifting and making the budget the principal tool of governance, and the people understand it, that if it's not in the budget, it's nowhere. Then when a president walks around, nobody will ask him for freebies. You simply tell them it's not in the budget. Maybe try next time.
Put in the next year's budget.
To get in the next budget. So the country becomes a state, not a private property of whoever is wielding presidential power.
Senator Omtatah, thank you very much for joining us.
So, and the way is, move the people. And the people are going to move with us. It's not a walk in the park, but it has to be done and doable.
And somebody must do it.
And somebody must do it. And the national anthem must begin reflecting what this country is. Not today when I sing the national anthem, I'm singing a national anthem to a different country.
Okiya Omtatah is the senator from Busia County. He has established a presidential exploratory committee, a 10-member committee that has been gazetted. So he says when they come to you and they are polling and they're asking you questions, just know that they've got his mandate, okay? Thank you very much for joining us. This conversation begins. We have to continue with it and even get some members of that committee.
But it's a work under development. The policy framework is being done. We want to build a vehicle, and I'm just offering myself to be a driver for that vehicle. I'm not offering myself as the solution. I want to drive the vehicle.
You're just a driver.
Yeah, so there are many people working on that, and the very, very clear policies will come out very soon. But for the cabinet, we have already that one we have done. We'll have a small cabinet of 14 ministers, closed chapter.
Very good.
Cut off the wastage.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.